rig to win, and they rig when they lose.
That's more dispensaries than Starbucks and McDonald's combined.
There's Newtonian physics for babies, and there's quantum physics for babies.
Police across 5 European countries arrested 84 people suspected of ties to Italy's 'Ndrangheta mafia. The organization is believed to control as much as 80% of Europe's cocaine trade, and the sting pulled in more than 3 tons of the drug, along with 300 pounds of ecstasy and around 2 million euros in laundered cash.
So I think he's a very scared man running for his life somewhere in the desert near the Euphrates River.
A top American commander says he believes Islamic State leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi is still alive. Baghdadi hasn't been seen in public since 2014, and the U.S. has offered $25 million for his capture.
And we're going to miss you. Your decency, sincerity, and kind soul will stay with us forever. So through our tears, let us know the blessings of knowing and loving you, a great and noble man, the best father a son or daughter could have. And in our grief, let us smile knowing that Dad is hugging Robin and holding Mom's hand again.
After 2 days of protests at the Wisconsin state capitol, it was relatively calm this morning around 6 a.m. when Republican lawmakers finally passed their top priority for the lame duck session.
There are 17 ayes, 16 noes. The bill is passed. The chair recognizes Senator from the 13th.
A series of bills to dramatically reduce the powers of the incoming Democratic administration. The bills now go to outgoing Governor Scott Walker, a Republican, who said he'll sign them. The new laws are designed to make life much harder for the guy who beat Walker, Tony Evers, and his Attorney General, Josh Kaul. They require Evers to seek lawmakers' approval before making changes to public benefits programs. And they make Kaul jump through hoops to file federal lawsuits, or to withdraw from ones, like Walker's challenge of the Affordable Care Act. It's all part of a new tradition in American politics, where a party loses an election and then rewrites the rules of the state in the aftermath. This week, Republican lawmakers in Michigan passed a law that would let the legislature intervene in the incoming Democratic Attorney General's ability to file lawsuits.
If you don't get it,
and in 2016, GOP lawmakers in North Carolina stripped the new Democratic governor of his power to make appointments to key positions. In Wisconsin, Democrats like Jennifer Schilling, the Senate Minority Leader, fumed all night.
Your antics today is what the voters rejected on November 6th.
Republicans, meanwhile, were relatively hard to find. Walker showed up briefly on Monday to attend a Christmas tree lighting ceremony, where he was heckled by protesters. When he was elected in 2010, he wrote a letter to the outgoing Democratic administration demanding that it not use the lame duck period to interfere with the voters' choice. He didn't respond to a request for comment, and none of the dozen or so Republican legislators we reached out to would talk to us. They did hold a press conference on Tuesday. Given the timing of this, how is this not just a power grab by a party that no longer has the governorship?
We've been talking about this for a while. Now, as Senator Fitzgerald has consistently said, legislative process and a lot of these issues are kind of inside baseball. But if you are in the legislature and you are in the executive branch, you want to make sure that the two are equal. That's the whole basis of our democracy. And the system right now is heavily weighted toward the executive. Now, having it done right now is not the ideal situation. I would have preferred to have done it with Governor Walker in the spring.
Republicans didn't really have to explain themselves, because the outcome of the vote here was never in doubt. They have a firm grasp on the legislature, thanks in large part to aggressive gerrymandering, which gave them 64% of the seats in the assembly this year, despite winning just 46% of the vote. That means things aren't likely to change anytime soon, something Senator Schilling had to face when she came back to work this morning. How dramatic of a reshifting of power is this here?
My Republican colleagues said, no, we're just leveling the playing field. We're now admitting that we may have given too much power to the executive branch, and we're just bringing it back, that we want to be a co-equal branch of government. Well,
Do they have a point at all?
Well, no, we would never been here had Scott Walker been reelected. And they gave that power away to that administration. But it was a ruse, because the people's checks and balances was on election day. They rig to win, and they rig when they lose.
The likeliest outcome? A lawsuit over the bill's constitutionality, filed by the Attorney General himself. That's one power the Republicans didn't manage to take away.
The opening days of the 2020 race for the White House are upon us. So it's time for the long shot candidates, with money to burn, to try and start informally testing the waters before the establishment heartthrobs get in and take all the attention. Another way of putting it, it's rich white guy candidate season. There's Howard Schultz, the billionaire former CEO of Starbucks. Michael Bloomberg, the billionaire former mayor of New York City, is on a tour of early primary states that took him to Iowa on Tuesday. Also in Iowa is former businessman and Maryland Congressman John Delaney. He's been running presidential campaign ads since February. And then there's billionaire former hedge fund manager Tom Steyer. The last time you saw Tom Steyer, it was probably in one of these.
Our democracy is directly under attack. Mr. Trump is dangerous. He has more than met the standard for impeachment.
But Steyer didn't come to South Carolina yesterday to talk about removing President Trump from office.
So the 5 rights that I proposed for Americans in the 21st century are the right to an equal vote, the right to clean air and clean water, the right to learn, the right to a livable wage, and the right to health.
The crowd listened attentively, for the most part.
But I'd like to hear Tom speak on some of these other things, and I'd like to hear you speak on impeachment.
We have the most corrupt president in American history.
Steyer spent millions of his own dollars making himself into Mr. Impeachment. Now he's spending more money trying to make himself into Mr. Ideas for a Better America. The Charleston Roundtable was about how to fix voting. It featured local advocates and the national president of the NAACP. There's always a coyness to events like this. The people who host them don't want to say they're running for president. Yet. You're considering it, though, right?
Look, I am willing to do anything, and I am considering it. But the question is, I'm not going to do it in a vacuum. I want to see what I can do that will have the most positive impact, and I want to see what everybody else does. Because from my standpoint, I am extremely ambitious and 100% determined to be part of the effort to get this country back to being prosperous and just.
South Carolina was the first stop of Steyer's tour across the country. He wants to meet voters. Should he run for president, do you think?
We'll see.
But should he? Do you think he should?
I kind of think being president is a very hard job.
I think if he stands for and can come up with some, what more do those 5 things actually mean, and how are we going to get the country to, at least on the path to do that, then absolutely, sure.
He has experience working with a bunch of rich old white men, and so I think that maybe he understands how rich white men think.
What's valuable to the Democratic Party about having a first-time person as a presidential nominee? I mean, the Republicans tried it. It hasn't worked out that well for their party in the long run.
If you were going to think about who is a great president, you'd probably say a lawyer from Illinois who had been a one-time congressman something like 12 or 14 years before. In fact, what turns out that Americans are looking for, and that they've always been looking for, is someone to interpret the world in a way that's accurate, truthful, and meaningful.
Comparing yourself to Abraham Lincoln, another sign you're running for president.
If you're really looking to make choices here, you have to understand how this system works and how other systems work in the world.
And you do that better than somebody who's been doing that policy as a politician for 10 years, 15 years?
Are you asking me, do I think that I understand the economy of the United States of America better than a politician? Yes, I do. Do I think I understand it much better? Yes, I do.
Oregon has had a long love affair with marijuana. So when voters passed a ballot measure legalizing it in 2014, everyone reacted about how you'd expect. A free market pot paradise was coming, especially for people who managed to get into the business early. People like David Alport.
And you used to come down here and it was packed full of people and bustling. The market price for, a pound of outdoor flower was $1,500 a pound, and we were seeing dollar signs, and so we were moving full steam ahead and excited about it. There were 20 employees at the height in 2017, and we just let go of our last 3 employees last week, so it's a pretty drastic change.
The problem is that weed didn't stay at $1,500 a pound, or anywhere near it. Wholesale prices are down by more than 70% since the beginning of 2017. And that's because Oregon got some big things wrong when it came to creating a pot industry.
So we've shut this operation down and we've put it on the market. We're selling it and we're going to move on. We'll take a loss.
How much of a loss?
Hundreds of thousands of dollars. So.
After the 2014 legalization vote, legislators took an egalitarian but short-sighted stance. They decided to make it as easy as possible for everyone to get in on the gold rush. Unlike in Washington and Colorado, there was no cap on the number of growers, no rules to limit production, and no restrictions on out-of-state residents. They also set the price for a license as low as $1,000, compared to tens of thousands of dollars just across the border in California. And it all worked. To create a colossal weed glut.
I don't think it's controversial to say that there is too much weed in Oregon right now.
It did take a while before I had enough studies so I could confirm that, but I think we're getting close to say there's more weed than in our legal system being produced by our legal system than can be consumed by Oregonians.
Steve Marks, who's in charge of regulating Oregon's recreational marijuana and liquor industry, is putting it lightly. Oregon's more than 1,100 licensed producers are growing about twice as much weed as the state's 4 million people are consuming. The feds won't let them ship any of it out of state, so the only legal ways to get rid of the extra product are by auctioning it off or destroying it, which farmers have been doing a lot of this year. And then there's always the black market. Marks thinks maybe 10% of growers are choosing that route.
10% might be a lot, but the federal tax collection system probably has a loss rate of around that much.
But I don't think that anyone thinks that the federal tax collection system works very well.
Well, that's good, but you might win this one. All right, it sounds like a lot.
Do you look back at it and think maybe we should have put some caps on production or on the licenses?
My job's not to second guess that. I'm just the administrator, but if you're asking me, I don't think so. Everyone just wanted to be the first in, to have their stake in it, and they were willing to take the risk to be a part of that market. So I don't think that's necessarily bad. And in a control market, they'd be left out. They'd never get that chance.
You think all this cheap product would at least be great for the people selling weed. But the same free market system that's given Oregon a ton of growers has also flooded the state with a ton of dispensaries.
Saturation is everywhere. It's on all license holders. Now we have 550 stores in the state of Oregon. That's more dispensaries than Starbucks and McDonald's combined in the state of Oregon, just to give you a perspective of what that might look like.
When Megan Wallstatter and her husband Matt opened Pure Green, it was one of only 2 dispensaries on Sandy Boulevard in Portland. Now there are 13, one about every 1,000 feet for almost 100 blocks. People call it the Green Mile.
Well, how do you, as a retailer, feel the effects of saturation in the market?
I am constantly looking at prices. We're constantly receiving feedback from people coming into the store about what other stores are doing. We're kind of in a race to the bottom and the top at the same time. You know, there's a lot of loss leaders that are out there that are just dropping prices to have people come in.
Megan and Matt were tired of seeing their piece of the special pie shrink, so they decided to sell their business to a larger company. They're staying on as employees.
We were approached by C21, which is a Canadian company, and we have sold the store to them, and that will allow us to be able to, we hope, be more viable and continue being here.
Of course, there's one group of people who would never complain about weed market competition. People who like cheap weed.
I just bought a pre-rolled pack of joints for $16, and that is like something I would have never dreamed of.
It's great. I don't think about the expense anymore, which is super awesome, you know?
They should probably enjoy the super awesomeness while it lasts. Oregon stopped looking at new retail and producer applications this summer, and it slowed processing the almost 1,500 people who were already waiting in line. And the industry is finally showing signs of adjusting. Alport has given up on the bottom of the market and now runs a smaller operation focused on luxury weed, which just so happens to be priced at the $1,500 a pound he pegged his original business model to.
Is any part of you worried that you're not the only person making this decision, that there are other people making this exact same decision around the same time to cater just to the higher ed market?
I'm not necessarily worried. I think that there could be a decline in the market price for this type of flower, but we've got some room with our margins.
Oh no, I forgot the bread.
Oh non, j'ai oublié le pain.
No problem. I dropped by at the bakery this morning.
Pas de problème, I've been in the US for 10 years, and my entire scientific world is really based here at the moment. I found the results of the election in 2016 were shocking. And in the climate science community, there was quite an acute fear. I'm the recent recipient of a grant organised by the French government under the name Make Our Planet Great Again, which involves getting international scientists to come to France.
Celui qui nous permettra de make our planet great again.
I first heard about the grant through social media, to be honest. President Macron announced that in light of Trump withdrawing from the Paris Agreement, that France was going to become a centre for climate science. I'm feeling overwhelmed with the practicalities of actually packing up our life and moving everything to France. It seems impossible right now, but I'm sure we'll do it. So I work for the National Centre for Atmospheric Research, which is called NCAR for short, and it's funded by the National Science Foundation. I think it's a strange time for climate science in the US. People are a little bit wary of proposing research which would be deemed to be political. So my wife is a land surface modeler. She builds representations of trees and forests within the climate model here.
I mean, really, Ben was the only other English guy at NCAR, and he worked on the corridor. So either that's fate or it's just really unimaginative. One of those things. Yeah, we don't believe in fate though, because we're rational.
Our son's name is Sam, and he is 15 months old. I don't think he's fully aware of what's going to happen. My wife and I both have green cards, but upon leaving the US, that will invalidate our green cards. Uh-oh. That's going to be strange, because our son is a US citizen, because I think on some level we both imagine that we retire in southern Colorado somewhere. And to think that that is not going to be how it's going to be now is odd. The report focused on the temperature targets from the Paris Agreement. The only way to achieve these temperature targets is through the rapid reduction of CO2 emissions.
If somebody is looking for a reason to reject what we say, they will find it no matter what we say. And we cannot feel that it is our responsibility to prevent that because there's nothing we can do. When you feel that you're in an environment where, first of all, you aren't able to get access to the resources that you need, you feel like not only is your work not appreciated, but you are actively attacked, it's natural for people to want to look for other places to go. And so I'm afraid, as this spreads across the country, that we could end up losing a large number of key people that would really help to advance the research.
In about an hour, the moving company are going to show up. They have to pack all of our stuff into boxes and label it. There's Newtonian physics for babies, yeah? And there's quantum physics for babies, which is quite good. Although Ben thinks it's slightly wrong.
My wife and I both feel very bittersweet. We have so many memories and so many friends and so many associations with Boulder, and leaving this place is going to be really tough.
Mambo sapang. There's a bear. Yeah? Bear! Yay! That's the bear, isn't it?
We've got a small cottage on the south edge of Toulouse. Here we're in a completely different world where we don't know that many people and everything's a little bit different. So the grant is for 5 years, which is quite a long time by academic standards. This institution is called Surfax. My initial feeling is that the perception of climate science in France is not so politicized. You don't have to think so hard about what your audience is before you decide what to focus your research on.
Ben and I have done quite a lot of impulsive things in general, and all of them, I guess we've just sort of gritted our teeth and been like, well, we'll just see how this goes. You have to make choices in life. People do this, right? People change countries. Eventually they figure out how to make it work.
There is curiosity about what life in the US is like at the moment.
Go on here.
People are still surprised here that somebody would leave the US to work in France. I don't think America has lost its role as being an international center of climate science. It's still true that some of the best people in the world are there, and a lot of people have no plans to leave.
We were a few days away from the ATMs not working.
Suddenly, folks are getting wiped out.
I asked, are we headed for a Great Depression? And Bernanke said, it looks that way.
Congress can't get it together.
There was fear, and we did it without a playbook. The fact that the American public hates what we did is not surprising because in many ways it's un-American.